Damn straight. He comes in here tonight. I don't want him slapping his lips on my asshole. Welcome to Hey Guys Podcast. I'm Rob, that's Liam, he's Dave. And this week, for your listening and our viewing pleasure, we watched Bubba Ho-Tep, directed by the man that gave us the Phantasm series and starring Bruce Campbell as an aging Elvis and Ozzie Davis as JFK. Elvis never died. He just quit being Elvis to live as an Elvis impersonator who now lives in a care home alongside JFK, who also never died. He just had part of his brain replaced with sand, was dyed black to avoid suspicion. Our two unlikely heroes have to fight a mummy who seems obsessed with cowboys from sucking out the souls of the residents at the Shady Rest retirement home from their assholes. And if that doesn't sound bad enough, Elvis has to do all of this whilst dealing with growth on his pecker. On an estimated budget of $1 million and a worldwide box office of just over that, Bubba Ho-Tep was not a big hit. But I believe it's safe to say that for the people that have found this film, as in the vein of Tucker and Dale, they love it. It's not a big talking point, but the people I talk to who have seen this film thoroughly enjoy it. And I don't think I'm going out on much of a limb by saying my two co-hosts today are in agreement with me. Or am I, as Liam so often is, very, very wrong?
This motherfucker, unbelievable. Sorry, I almost made a noise there. I was just taking a drink. I've got like a can of Red Bull, trying to give me that. We're recording in the afternoon. I'm trying to give myself like a, perk up kind of thing. And I did that thing where the ring pull got caught on my mustache. Fucking sucks, man. That's up there with like, stubbing your toe. Unbelievable. Anyway, completely off topic.
Talking about Bubba Ho-Tep, we're not talking about pulling your nose hairs out.
I know, none nose hairs, mustache. Mustache, god damn it. I'm not
You're
that
42. Old. It's all nose hairs, trust me.
Yeah, I do have to trim my nose hairs now. It's an embarrassment. But anyway. And that's the problem with this film. Going back to it now, it's slightly more relatable. Like I haven't seen this film for like 20 years. Like fuck, man, this is getting depressingly relatable. And we're not.
Thankfully, I haven't got to the point yet where I look down at my dick and go, "What's that?"
Yeah.
I might be getting there, but yeah,
it's work at least.
Anyway, the movie, it is still loads of fun. It's completely driven by the two lead performances from Ozzie Davis and Bruce Campbell. I really like the direction in many respects, despite the fact that it is a budget movie. And you mentioned the fact that it's a cult film. It is a proper cult film. Not like, we did Street Fighter last week. That is, I guess, technically a cult film. That was also a huge budgeted film, which actually did really well at the box office. It's just cult because people still watch it because it's rubbish. When I think of like quintessential cult movies, what I think of are actually really good movies that a small number of people have seen and love, but nobody else seen, but it just hasn't caught on. And the other great example was the one you already used in the intro, was Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Like this belongs in the same category where I'm literally like, I don't understand how more people haven't seen this film. It's insane. And 22 years later, it nearly all still holds up, with the exception of a couple of very turn of the century directorial decisions. And what I'm really talking about here are like the Dutch angles, which he uses. Dutch angles are when like the camera is slightly tilted to the side to add some kind of dramatic effect. I hate those. They always remind me of what was the Scientology film released around the same time? Battlefield Earth. Yeah, that had a cunt load of them, where the camera's always on its side. Fucking terrible film. And it does a lot of those like flash cuts, when it's trying to add, again, drama, and they're showing, like he's having memories or something. It does like really, like, they always remind me of like the trailer for Independence Day, only it's used in the film about 72 times. As long as you can get past those turn of the century directorial decisions, the rest of the film is still fantastic as far as I'm concerned.
It is great. And Tucker and Dale, but the good thing about Tucker and Dale is things happened in that film.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot happens in this film. I mean, I still love it, but is it just me?
But this is more of a mood piece, though. This is a completely different film. And again, one of the reasons I think it works comes down to Don Coscarelli. You mentioned the fact that he directed the Phantasm series. It was, what was it? John Dies at the End and the Beastmaster films. A lot of those films do a similar thing where they combine the absurd with the genuinely emotional. And like Tucker and Dale is an all-out comedy. This film really does wear its heart on its sleeves for huge parts of it. Like there's a reason Bruce Campbell's performance is so great in this film. It's because he's allowed to be silly and absurd like he is in the Evil Dead films, the kind of performance we expect from him. But he also really has, like, his performance has a lot of heart, I think, in this film.
It's so weird that I wasn't sure what the film's about. It's one of those things, is it a horror film? Is it a sort of a take on how terrible people are to the old these days and just sticking them in a home and forget about them? or is it just about Bruce Campbell's dick? I mean, the amount of times he mentions his pecker, and it's going to be one of my loves, and a bit of a spoiler. I mean, I love the way he said pecker. I mean, it is hysterical.
But I was a little disappointed you didn't at least have a crack at the accent.
Oh, mate, I'm terrible with accents. I can't. I tried it when I did the intro. I did say pecker, but it's Cornish.
Pecker. There seems to be a growth on my pecker. There does. What's going on here? But I
was thinking of you.
mean.
Sorry, I was thinking, Dave. I thought of you. One of the things, as a guy who loves history, like World War and all that, when she chucked the roommate's purple heart away.
Yeah. I had to explain to my wife what a purple heart was.
Yeah,
it's a sad moment.
it's up there next to blue balls. It's just not.
But
good.
that again, that's another one of those scenes. Like this film combines like the comedic and the genuinely existential, like the silly and the serious. Like it has laughs, but like in a moment like that, like it leaves like it deals a lot with loss of like the loss of dignity that comes with old age. I think that's really what it's about. Is like, yeah, it's about a mummy terrorizing an old person's home, but really what it is about like giving people a purpose to their life. Like I think that's fundamentally, on the surface, you're like, oh, Elvis and JFK fight mummy in old person's home. But really what the film is about is a bunch of old people finding their kind of love of life again because they've just got purpose, albeit that purpose is absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that it both leans into just how absurd the premise is, but also leans into just how emotional and how important this actually is for the characters. And I think that's the reason when I think of Bruce Campbell, when everyone thinks of Bruce Campbell, they think of Ash in The Evil Dead. I actually think this is his best performance. And I don't think it's any stretch to say this sits alongside the best portrayals of Elvis on screen ever. I think he's legitimately that good. I think to get that balance between comedy and emotion and to be that genuinely heartfelt, I think is a really tricky balancing act, which he nails.
Playing old Elvis, yeah, definitely. But playing young Elvis, he looked more like Quentin Tarantino as the vampire from Dusk Till Dawn than he did Elvis.
I mean, he really hams the moves up as well when he's on stage and he's doing all the hands.
Oh, I loved all that.
It's not quite as fluid as Elvis was, but he does the part.
Well, the thing is, like, he has the physicality.
It's interesting, right? Because you said about the nature, Dave, you said there as well about how they treat. Is it a look on how they treat old people? It's these people getting their mojo back, just living life again. And all I could do was laugh out loud when he dropped the body after they were taking, they weren't paying attention, and he's carrying the body out of the shady rest retirement home, and he falls over the balcony into the bush, and this poor dead body's just flapping around.
Yeah, and again, that's a perfect example of like having the two sides of this film sit so comfortably side by side, where you have one of those moments where you're like, oh, this is kind of inching towards something serious, like a message movie. And then they go for just completely balls to the wall, kind of, physical comedy. And the two, like, it just never feels, they don't feel like kind of, odd bedfellows. Is that a saying? Or have I just made that up?
Strange
bedfellows, we'll go with that. But again, like I said, I know he might not look the part, but if you have a look through the list of like the great Elvis performance on screen, it's like a lot of people kind of had Jonathan Rhys-Meyers as one of the best. It was actually a mini series, but I couldn't get over the fact that he just didn't have the physicality. Like if you see the film, he's got like the emotion of the character, but he doesn't look the part in any way. So like Kurt Russell in 1979, which is weird because that was only 2 years after Elvis died. What was the other one? Michael Shannon in Elvis versus Nixon. I don't think he looks anything like Elvis, but he was great in that. Val Kilmer in True Romance. It didn't really matter because I don't think did you see his face in that film? I don't think you did.
You didn't. You just see the action standing behind Christian Slater.
Yeah. The only issue I have, and I know we might have different opinions on this, I thought Austin Butler was so good in Baz Luhrmann's take on Elvis that to me has become like the de facto Elvis.
I can 100% tell you right now, you're not going to have different appearances because, David, I don't think we've watched this film.
No.
Honestly, it was one of like the most pleasant surprises of last year because Baz Luhrmann can go either way. Like, he's got that big cinematic style. It's like his films either land or they just completely crash and burn. And this was like the perfect marriage of director and narrative, basically. And I tell you what, like Austin Butler, as soon as I came out, I was like, that guy is a fucking megastar, like a megastar. And now, obviously, he's like, what is he? He's in June Part 2. And I'm not sure if you've seen that video of him shooting guns recently. My God, he looks the fucking part. I think
Yeah,
it's
he's
because
training for a new action film, isn't he? I don't know what it is yet, but
well, a lot of
I
people
just
think it's
remember
going
him
to
from
be Heat
I
2
just remember him from Yoga Hoses.
of all the
Great film
movies.
that one.
Yeah.
Of all the movies. But my point being, I'm not saying I'd put him on the top of the list, but I genuinely think Bruce Campbell, I think this is his best performance, and I think this belongs in the upper echelons of on-screen portrayals of a king.
Bruce Campbell is having loads of fun, probably because the 1 million budget, probably 700,000 that went to him. I mean, he is a better Elvis than probably Ozzie Davis is as JFK. You know, I'm not too
love Ozzie
sure that's
Davis.
the most accurate representation of JFK. I'm just going out on a limb there.
That's another interesting thing about this film, though. It's like the film almost isn't interested as to whether they are actually Elvis and JFK. Like it never it remains ambiguous right to the end. Even with JFK, you get the little scar in his neck, which kind of lines up with him saying it is, is replaced by sand or whatever nonsense it was, because Lyndon Johnson was trying to assassinate him. But like to the end of the film, like that's not the point of it. I think the point is it's like, oh, these old guys have got their life back briefly. Like as to whether they're actually JFK and Elvis, it's like who gives a fuck? But the premise is still what sells the film. It's what everyone remembers.
I love her as well because he is not drifting away from I'm JFK. When he comes in, he says the woman that pretends to be my niece came over and took me to the library and I did some research. And like the woman that pretends to be my niece, was like he's JFK, whether you like it or not. That dude is JFK.
I hope he is. I really like for the sake of the film. By the end of it, I was like, I hope they are Elvis and JFK. I'm not convinced it actually matters, but I love the idea that that's actually them, especially Ozzie Davis as JFK.
Bar.
Yeah,
and what it's called now?
Baby Ruth.
No, that's another one, wasn't it? Yeah.
Ding dong, isn't it? You've got a ding dong. He's like,
oh yeah, he wants a
I don't want your
ding
ding dong.
Yeah.
No, a chocolate covered ding dong. My ding dong looks like it's covered in chocolate.
There's a lot of very American food. Like I love the fact that the scale of measurement that they use is the peanut butter and banana sandwich. It's like big man, like my hand, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's like I'm going to use that as a measure, a unit of measure for the rest of my life. I think, but that is, speaking earlier about the fact that this film is a bit more relatable. When Ozzie Davis says to him, it's like, let's get decadent, and they're just eating chocolate bars. I'm like, God damn, man, that's kind of like how I live decadently nowadays. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a chocolate bar this evening and a can of Coke. It used to be like, I'd smoke 20 cigarettes, do shots. No. Now I'm just eating too much chocolate and drinking.
All the Easter eggs, and you just say, let's get decadent.
Oh, so
can we go back to the beginning, right? Can we all agree that the old woman stealing glasses from a lady in an iron lung deserved to die? Like she deserved to have a soul sucked out of her asshole.
And I've got to ask the question now that you brought it up, right? Iron lungs a cinematic affectation? Do they actually exist?
Yeah,
I've never seen them before. I can't
remember what the disease was they were there for. It was was it polio?
Don't know. It's basically creates negative pressure and it forces you to breathe. So when you can't physically breathe anymore, it makes you do it.
Although that one did look like it was steam powered. It was so fucking old.
I just associate, like, when I think of Iron Lungs, I think of this movie and I think of The Big Lebowski. Like, they're the two films I think of. And I'm like, surely there's, like, just a ventilator people use. They don't use this fucking Iron Lung, which looks like it walked off the set of BioShock or something. It's absolutely insane. But yeah, that woman deserved to die, for sure.
Oh, did you feel cheated when Elvis went down the hill to investigate the war and he didn't fall?
The look on his face is fantastic.
It felt cheated that he didn't fall. Like he made it. And all I could think about was bastards. They didn't show us how he gets back up.
That was the first thing Bethan said. She said, like, how's he get back up? We're like, we'll never know. But that speaks to your point earlier where you said, like, does anything happen in this film? Well, that is arguably the biggest action set piece in this film is Elvis getting down a small hill. Like that is the most threat you get in. Like even like the big showdown at the end with the mummy, it never escalates. He never gets off the. If anything, most of the film he can actually walk a bit, and you think, oh well, he's feeling better. It'll get to the point where he can actually get on his feet. By the end, he's back in a fucking wheelchair. It's so. I don't think any film has ever had such small scale action scenes. But I think it's very much on purpose in many respects.
Why does it as well? Why is the Egyptian mummy obsessed with cowboys?
I don't know because he's
cowboy boots. It's in Texas, is that what?
US, yeah.
It's Texas, yeah.
They are in Texas, aren't they? Yeah.
That's all I could think. Well, that's one of my issues with this film. Like, I really do enjoy this film, but I do feel like the Mummy could pose a bit more of a threat. I get it; it's played for laughs, like he's a shit eater and all that jazz, but at the end, he just kind of wanders around, and he's never particularly scary. Like, even when you see him properly for the first time, and they kind of backlight him, it just looks a bit dopey. And I know the effects are very Sam Raimi-ish and stuff. And that's why it's kind of aged in many respects, where the bugs are all physical effects. And it wasn't supposed to look good in 2002, so it doesn't matter in 2024. But I just feel like there could have been a bit more genuine threat from the mummy cowboy. But, small criticism, I think, otherwise.
I love that scarab bug as well, whose head just kept popping out of his body. And when it was doing it in the bedpan, when it's holding on, you could almost hear it snicker going, "Why me?"
Like, so ridiculous. Speaking of Sam Raimi, do you think they had to pay Sam Raimi to? The tagline for this, and it's on the DVD case, is "The King and JFK versus the Evil Dead." But I guess if you're Bruce Campbell, you can do what you want. It's like, Sam Raimi's not going to kind of reprimand him for that, is he? But it's really leaning into the fact that it's like, oh, by the way, Bruce Campbell's in the Evil Dead film. Right? Like, that's how they're trying to sell it.
I don't think Sam Raimi's going to turn around and do a fucking Chris Nolan or anything like that. I think he just doesn't give two shits.
So. Although I have to ask this, and again, this is slightly off topic, but I was watching just while I was mentioning the fact that I was watching this on DVD. It did that classic thing that DVDs did in like the late 90s, early 2000s, where before it goes to the menu, it started playing trailers like you're in the cinema. And it started playing the most 2000s trailer I have ever fucking seen for a film I've never heard of, where I'm like, Rob's probably seen this. Blind Horizon starring Val Kilmer. Does that ring any bells with you?
Does.
The trailer for it was fucking bananas, and it had a good cast. But I was like, God damn, man. Like, and that trailer was long as fuck. It showed the whole film, but it was edited by somebody who's just come off like a Linkin Park video. And yeah, like, it's just a film that I'd never ever heard of. It had like Neve Campbell in it, Val Kilmer, Amy Smart.
I saw this when I used to rent a lot of DVDs from Choices video shop. But
this feels quintessential Choices. This film, quintessential.
I never actually picked it up.
I get it, and I'm not sure if it's any good either. The trailer, it was mental, very much of its time, but I'm not convinced it's necessarily a good film.
But I did pick up a Val Kilmer film where he played an amputee who went up against a load of guys on an Indian reservation land, and he was Indian reservation land. That'll do.
That sounds like that sounds like you're having an acid trip. Are you sure that's a real thing?
or it's an Indian theme park.
Jesus Christ! Everyone forgets that Val Kilmer
reservation land,
had this like weird spell, and it was the early 2000s, like after Batman and what was the remake he did? Not The Professional, the something or another.
The Saint.
The Saint, yeah. It's like after those kind of tanked. And, he got this reputation for being a douchebag. He had that kind of like straight to DVD era. And he made a lot of strange films. Although I'm still not convinced that one you said, it wasn't just totally made up. But kind of hoping it's not at this point.
You said you watched this film on DVD. I also have it on DVD. But my DVD player decided to break. So,
oh dear.
It's a very difficult film to watch if you don't have a DVD player. Because it's not on any streaming services. But for the listeners, if you did want to watch it, you don't have it, full movies on YouTube. So if you just go on and put it in there. So that's how I watched it.
Yeah.
Slightly dodgy quality YouTube.
And I feel like you should. I feel like you should be able to convince people to go see it just off the premise. Like the whole idea of, Elvis impersonating himself. So is Elvis playing Sebastian Haff, playing Elvis, stuck in an old person's home, trying to convince people that he's actually Elvis as he fights alongside JFK against a mummy who's also a cowboy. It's like, as soon as you say all that, like, surely you want to see this film. And I was trying to think about like the high ideas. Like, is this one of those like high concept movies, or is this just silly concept movie? And I was like, I feel silly. Because the two are separate. Because when I thought of like I was like, oh, this is a high concept film. I'm like, it's not like a high concept film is like The Truman Show, The Matrix, Inception. This sits alongside like Human Centipede, as in a really dumb fucking idea, which has somehow made it to the screen. Like, it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work at all.
It's definitely a piss take, or as one of you said earlier on, it's an acid trip. Somebody was on an acid trip, or just going back to their 80s roots and snorting some cocaine and going, you know what we could do?
Well, it's based off a novella, isn't it? So
Sorry?
it's based off a novella.
Is
So
it?
somebody,
Okay.
So somebody wrote the story, and then Don Coscarelli. I get Don Coscarelli, and I don't think he's from Italy. Like Don means father. Is he calling himself Father Coscarelli? Is that a fucking thing?
His name's probably Donald, mate.
But if you've got an Italian second name and you call yourself Don, everyone fucking. I'm immediately thinking of The Godfather. I'm thinking Father Coscarelli.
It's the guy that created Chucky as well. His name's Don Mancini.
I don't know, man. I think it's very suspect. But anyway, like I was saying, it was a great premise. The closest thing to it in real life, or like the only one I could think of was like, remember Avril Lavigne? But I don't think like everyone thought she had been replaced by an impersonator. But I think that was because everyone thought she had died, which I guess is actually quite similar to this, the idea that she could have faked her own death and impersonator has taken a role. So, maybe the Canadian lights were just a little bit too bright for her. So
she's somewhere in Canada now. In a retirement home. Is she looking at a growth on her pecker?
Well, no, she's not quite there yet because she is our age, but maybe give her another 20 years and she could find herself in the same position. And again, that's another interesting thing with this film. If you go based on the dates, if Elvis was still alive in 2002, he would have been 67. I'm like, I don't know, man. He looks like he's playing him at like 85. Like Ozzie Davis was, well, conveniently, Ozzie Davis is the same age as what JFK would have been. They were both born in 1917, I think. So he's bang on the right age. But I'm like, I don't know, man. Like Elvis at 67, I know he led a pretty wild life, but I'm not sure if he should be in that kind of a state at 67. But what do I know?
I love the trailer park explosion. Like, when he's cooking hot dogs with lighter fluid. Like, oh, damn, man. Yeah. Like, he wonders why it all blew up. And when he goes to meet his counterpart, Sebastian Haff, and he is just in like the changing rooms of a local high school or wherever it is, eating like a blueberry pie in just what feels like his pants. Yeah. It is. Yeah. What was really interesting about this was played Elvis. You had flashbacks to him being Elvis. But obviously, because of budget, no Elvis music, no Elvis songs. Yeah.
Well, it would have cost, like you said, the budget was like less than $1 million. I think the production budget was actually 500,000 and it was like close to $1 million with everything that comes with it. But yeah, like if you had one Elvis song, that'd be like half the fucking budget for this film.
They couldn't even do the when they had the 24-hour Elvis marathon on TV, they couldn't show any of his old films, so they just had weird Elvis impersonators dancing, like just so you see their backs.
Yeah,
He was a race car driver. He was a World War II vet. Like, you just don't know what the fuck's going on.
I mean, there are times when the movie is kind of pushing it, like the concept is pushing up against the budget for the film. And you can see why it had a limited budget for obvious reasons. It's a ludicrous premise. And if this doesn't go well, like the thing is, every so often, a film like this, the premise, you get, like you said, somebody in Hollywood at Warner Brothers Studio, whatever, is fucking railing lines. Someone comes at the right time. You're like, yeah, let's give him fucking 20 million. Like something like Snakes on a Plane. They're like, and the only reason Snakes on a Plane got made was because somebody convinced Samuel L. Jackson to make it. That's the only reason that got funded. It's like, no, we've got Samuel L. Jackson. And yes, he's going to say that line. All right, cool, 20 million, here you go. This is much better than Snakes on a Plane. That's another one of those silly concept films where you go into it expecting, you're like, oh man, that sounds like a fucking amazing concept. And you've got Samuel L. Jackson in it. You see the trailer, like fucking baller, I'm going to go see this. And then you go and see it and the tone isn't right. And the film is dog shit. And Snakes on a Plane is dog shit, sadly. And then you go and see this, and that is like, obviously it's those two key performances, but the tone, to keep coming back to it, is what makes this film work. And it's the reason I think it still stands the test of time 20 years later. 22
most
years
disappointing
later.
part of Snakes on a Plane is the fact that they don't all die on the plane.
Oh, you mean Keenan Thompson couldn't fly it because he played PlayStation? Like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Such a disappointment.
Was the Mummy, the Mummy when he wasn't a mummy, when he was a human, I guess, was he a 15-year-old boy?
Wasn't he the Pharaoh's brother?
Just leaving random graffiti in the
he's
toilet.
played
Like
by
he knew that was a toilet. The mummy's never been alive during the times of indoor plumbing. Knew that was a toilet. Knew what you do on the toilet is you actually leave graffiti on the stall door.
He may be thousands of years old, but like Ozzy said, you want somewhere comfortable to take a shit, right?
Well, it would be, yeah, I guess it would be like such a treat, wouldn't it? Because if you showed up in like modern day and you've been shitting in a hole in the ground, and I don't want to say they've definitely been shitting in a hole in the ground because, ancient Egypt was pretty well advanced, certainly for its time. But, it was like, put this way, it's like the first time I went to Japan. Like, as soon as I saw that toilet, I didn't even need to go to the toilet, but I'm like, I'm sitting on that fucking toilet. And did I spend twice as long as I usually would on a toilet? Absolutely, because I had to press all the buttons. I was like, somehow every stream hits you right on the money. I don't even know how this is happening. So you go through the whole process, and it was the same for him. Like, obviously, I didn't write anything on the wall because I was too busy pressing buttons, but thematically, I think it works. But that was one of my other issues with this film. I thought some of the jokes involving the mummy, like the whole stuff where he leaves graffiti on the side, and when he does like the voiceover at the end, and like you see the
hieroglyphs come
out of his mouth. That didn't really work for me. I thought that was a little bit lame, to be honest. But like I said, most of the comedy did work, but they're not all winners, sadly.
I might be opening myself up here, right? But was the nurse weirdly attractive?
She was all right.
She was okay, yeah. Was it just because she was
I don't know. I don't know if it's like my Nurse Ratchet fantasy or whatever, but
Nurse Ratchet?
Yeah.
Really? Nurse Ratchet? Of all the nurses, dude. The most, literally the most evil nurse in cinematic history. It's like, that's the one you want to fuck.
Her and Kathy Bates from Misery.
Yeah, but she doesn't get kitted out, though, in the same way, does she? She is a nurse, but it's not the same. That's just Kathy fucking Bates.
She was very stern, the nurse in this. She's
quite playful as well.
Yeah, and very...
I just wanted to be clear that if you wanted to fuck Kathy Bates in Misery, it's nothing to do with her being a nurse. You just want to fuck Kathy Bates. That's a whole different subsection of Pornhub there. So you need to be a bit careful.
That ointment that she rubs on it, like, they didn't need that much. Usually the box there's just a little.
Oh yeah,
like it looked like it looked like KY jelly at first.
Hey, you don't know what he's packing. They might just need to be a lot of it.
How big's the growth? Rub it into the growth. And I loved it, right? When she's calling him Elvis and she's telling him to come back, and then he has this exposition where he's yelling at her, "Fuck off, you patronizing bitch! I'll yank my own crankshaft from now on." I thought that was great.
Yeah, it's funny, but again, it's like an important moment where he's like standing up for himself. So yeah, it totally works. Oh man, Bruce Campbell's so good in this film. I know he does look, like you said earlier, a little bit like Quentin Tarantino when he turns into a monster, but he does something with his face. Like he's always got like the side of his mouth slightly closed, and I just totally buy him as Elvis. I'm not sure about you guys, but I was just like you said, he's a big enough guy. Well, I bought him as a 67-year-old Elvis.
Dude, that's only because he's suffering from a bit of Bell's palsy. Nothing to do with the fucking.
I don't know. Like, I think he's just captured something now. I really thought he was great in this film. But and Ossie Davis is fun as well. But and like you said, maybe the nurse is fuckable. I don't know.
Did any of you two ever watch the Phantasm films on my own year?
Unbelievably not, because I remember them so clearly from when I'm young, because they had like the ball, didn't they, with like the
with the blades,
and I remember the poster with like the old guy, and it always looked like he was kind of like winking or like, I don't know, whatever. But it's just one of those like horror series which I never watched.
I only mention it because the admin guy in here, the one that didn't believe when you said Elvis was going, it was big, man, as big as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. He was one of the main stars for the Phantasm series. Like he went from the 80s up until like 2018 when they did the reimagining Phantasm.
Oh yeah.
He's one of the ones, like the legacy guy that just won't leave the fucking series.
It just never quite took off. Like obviously it has like, again, a cult following, but I always put it alongside the likes of like Hellraiser and stuff. And it's like I tried Hellraiser, and for some reason like it just didn't click for me. But I don't like that whole like grim dark aesthetic, which that kind of what's the guy who created it? He did
Clive
Barker.
Clive Barker, yeah.
Yeah. I've never been into that aesthetic kind of thing. And I thought Phantasm maybe sat in the same kind of world. Not the same world, but you know what I mean? That same level of horror franchise. And I don't know, just never clicked for me.
There is a Clive Barker film I know you like, Dave. Midnight Meat Train.
Oh, sounds right up my alley.
You remember?
No.
Wait. Midnight Meat Train.
That's not Vinnie Jones playing the guy on a train that would kill people and hang them up for monsters. And who played Face in the 18?
Wait, Midnight Meat Train.
Yeah, who played Face in the 18?
I can't remember.
Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper was it?
Dude, I thought you meant like the original TV show. Nobody, if you say whose face in the A-Team immediately goes to the bullshit remake movie. Nobody.
Such off bullshit. That wasn't
Dude,
Yeah.
that film was so bang average. It was like, and it had a good cast, but they
Yeah,
shit
but
the bed with that
you
film.
like fucking Avatar too, so nobody takes you fucking serious.
Avatar 2 is considerably better than the A-Team, sir. Jesus Christ.
We're doing now. The fact I know you don't remember it, we're definitely doing the Midnight Meat Train on this film. On this
Well,
podcast.
I don't know. It sounds like it's either a sandwich film or a very aggressive gay porn film. Can't say which it sounds more like, but I think it's a bold move to call your film Midnight Meat Train.
Only a book. It was a Clive Barker book.
Oh, there you go. There you go. See, that's why I'm not a Clive Barker fan. It's just too confusing. But this is the interesting thing, though, because we're talking about Clive Barker films and Midnight Meat Trains, and it does come back to your initial point that in terms of narrative and plot points and stuff, not a huge amount actually does happen in this film. You are absolutely right.
This is a 90-minute film, and probably 60 of those minutes are them walking or on the
Slowly.
or on the electric wheelchair, which all of a sudden had a Fast and Furious Nitro boost at the end.
Yeah, it was silly, but
Walking around, absolutely fine. The whole film, and then decided, no, I need a wheelchair.
Came running
Such a
in,
weird choice.
and he went, the woman who pretends to be my niece. He practically hop, skipping, and jumping. And then the next scene, you got him. He's just
actually
like
think
Stephen Hawking.
Oh yeah, it was weird. It like I said, the ending isn't my favorite part. I mean, I quite like the fact that he died at the end. I thought that was quite a nice touch. Well, no, I think it would have just been. I didn't want another sequel. I thought it like thematically worked quite well. Like
I would have been all right because there was meant to be a sequel, wasn't there?
No, it's supposed to be a prequel. That was the
Elvis
thing.
versus Nosferatu. I thought it was a sequel.
But Bubba Nosferatu, Curse of the She-Vampires. I thought it was supposed to be a prequel. I thought it was supposed to be one of
Well, it was another film, I guess.
Well, the thing is, supposedly it's still in development. If you look at IMDb, it's still supposedly his next film. But Bruce Campbell didn't like something about the script or something, and I'm not sure if we need that, to be honest. But we'll get to that in the what is it? One of the sections that we do. Anyway, one of the sections. But no, I know, like you said, for 60 minutes, not a lot happens. But I think you do need to establish that mundanity of their lives to make, that's what makes everything work. It makes, the emotional beats of this film work. If you just kind of like just keep, oh, look, this is a silly premise, off to the races. I don't think this movie works. I think you just turn it into a 15-minute sketch. But if you want it to be a 90-minute movie, I think for it to work, it needs to mean something. And that's why you need those kind of melancholy moments, as it were.
I think it was clever putting it in like an old people's home, where because you can then slow everything down and don't have to have action set pieces or anything like that. Like the biggest, their kitting up scene was filming the weed killer with whatever liquid they had. I can't remember the liquid that he managed to procure.
It almost didn't matter. It became about what sweets they were eating. That's that's how silly this film is.
And that chant that they got from the local book of, I guess, mummies or whatever it was, and he's there just yelling at this guy.
Where did he get that book from?
This is a great book. It doesn't even rhyme.
No one knows where he got that book. And you get the big lines like 2 key words for tonight are caution and flammable. And watch your ass. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Why as well does JFK have mugshots of gangsters? Are they
it's Lee Harvey Oswald, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all the people who were involved.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, and it was like Lyndon Johnson, and it was all the people who were involved supposedly involved in the assassination of JFK. That's why you were so obsessed about Lyndon Johnson, because Lyndon Johnson was the next president of the United States. So obviously they would have been competing against each other back in like 62 or whatever.
Also, JFK's family were minted. He's not really JFK because he's in that room and he's got like a double or a full-size 4-poster bed. He's got his own. Well, no, Elvis had his own bathroom as well. But Elvis then is sharing a room with another guy.
It was very yellow as well. It looked dirty and horrible. Whereas he looked like he was in a hotel room.
Yeah. And when he pressed his bed looked like from a motel that you see on these old films. There's like the magic fingers. You put a quarter in and your bed shakes.
Oh yeah, they're always so depressing.
The guy next to him who dies.
Yeah.
What have I seen? Is that the guy from Saving Private Ryan? The old version.
Oh, the old version. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, I don't know. I'm saying that with such confidence. I'm like, it is him, or at least it looks a lot like him. Like,
Yeah. So when I was watching it, I was like, I know this dude from somewhere, but I couldn't be bothered looking at it, and it just popped into my head.
I am going to check it. And
yeah,
not that I want to
Well,
check,
while
yeah.
you're checking this, before we move on to favorite scene, here's, I guess, the big question: do you guys actually believe that they were JFK and Elvis? Do you think they were supposed to be then?
He may be Elvis.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's very slim chance that he's JFK.
See, I
For
think it's
very
going to be a
obvious
pair.
reasons.
I think it's going to be a pair. I think it's either going to be that's Elvis and that's JFK, or it's nothing at all. They're both, he's just gone in, he's fallen off the side of the stage and he's lost his fucking mind, which again makes the film so much more depressing. I so want them to be JFK and Elvis. Otherwise, this is a much darker film.
Yeah, it goes towards mental illness then, doesn't it?
Yeah. We don't need that. We're already dealing with the melancholy, the loss of, all these things about growing old, the loss of dignity. I don't want to deal with mental fucking health issues as well at the same time. We're trying to have fun with this movie, for the love of God.
He was older, Ryan.
There we go. Good
but
shout,
he was
good
also
job.
Sheriff Bowman 2 years before Bubba Ho-Tep. He was Sheriff Bowman in a film called Crocodile.
Crocodile. Trust Dave. If Dave was ever going to stroll in with just like a random fact, it would be from a World War II movie, wouldn't it? So on fucking point. Unbelievable. All right, anyway, let's move on to favorite scene.
Before we do, I had one more thing I wanted to mention about the nurse. I noticed as well that she was in one of Dave's favorite films ever.
Midnight Meat Train?
Stop on My Mum Will Shoot.
Oh, I love that film.
Oh, God. The Sylvester
I had to
Stallone
get
one.
that on recorded.
That's just quintessential 90s fantastic shit films. It's great. I love it.
That is a bad film. Anyway, favorite scene. Do you want to go first? Dave? Go for it, buddy.
Yeah, I think my favorite scene was, this is a bit weird. It's when the daughter comes to clear out his and it's just the way he's looking at her ass.
I thought this was going to be about the Purple Heart again.
Yeah, and because he's been in bed for so long and things are flashing past, it's almost like he's not conscious of life anymore, is he? He's just like in and out of it. And he just has that lucid moment of, you think back to yourself of being like a 20-year-old and you're just a fucking horn dog, and you just anything. He's got absolutely no reaction apart from a little flutter.
I love it.
I love that line. Yeah. My pecker fluttered like a pigeon having a heart attack. It's like such a great fucking line. And I love when he's reminiscing about his wife, and he's like, "Would we fuck, or would we just have to talk about it?" And I was like, "Oh, that's so depressing." The idea that you get older and you're just like, "We'll just talk about fucking instead of doing it." I'm like, "Oh my God, that is grim." Is that a thing old people do? I have no idea. I fucking hope not. I'm like, if I'm not fucking, I don't want to be talking about it. Jesus Christ. Grim.
Mine has to be Elvis with a busted hip trying to fight a weird scarab thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that you're trying to do an action set piece and he's in his mind, he's going, right, I'm 50 or whatever I am at this age, but I'm meant to be Elvis in my 80s or whatever it is. So I got to pretend that I can't move. And he did it really well. But what I love, because it made you think, again, you go back, if he's not Elvis and this isn't where it is, then they're being treated like shit as well by these, because he's going to bed, it's late at night, because he's already woken up, and they haven't taken his meal away. Like, they've just left his fucking
Well, he's not the ex-president. But that also leans into the idea that he is the like you said, he's definitely got the money. Like that room is, I can't believe, like, it's so ludicrous that those two rooms would exist in the same old person's home. Yeah, everything about his existence
also,
is pretty sad.
In the hallway, there's a woman in an iron lung. She's not in a room.
Yeah,
she's
just
in the fucking hallway. They've just wheeled her out somewhere and just left some other old bat, which again was going to be one of my favorite scenes when the old woman got taken out.
Oh, what is that? Is kleptomaniac? Is that the correct term for somebody who steals all the time?
Oh, dude, she was just a bitch.
Well, it just reminded me.
Yeah,
it's a great way of like basically getting like a free kill, which works at the start of the film. You just get somebody, just any person, but you just get them to do something slightly shitty, and it's like, stealing the glasses off her face. It's like, she's obviously got something wrong with her, but it's still such a dick move. So that when she does get killed, this woman, this little old woman who you don't know, you're like, yeah, she had it coming. She shouldn't have stolen those fucking chocolates, the bitch.
One of his favorite scene when they drop the dead body over the into the bush.
Go for that as well. Go for that. My favorite scene would be basically when he visits Sebastian Haff to swap lives. Like, I love, like, The fact that he has the opportunity to play kind of like younger, I guess, Elvis. But I love when he comes in and you could see like the kind of Elvis that's about, like, without having like a big, dramatic moments. They just have him eating cake on his own, like an absolute savage. And he's got like the blueberry coming out the side of his mouth. And basically that tells you the story. Is like, this is why Elvis went off the rails, because this guy just loved to fucking eat, basically. But I love when he like drops to his knees and kisses the ring and all that jazz. It's so cheesy, but it totally works. And it actually leads into one of like a surprisingly fantastic shot in this film. For the most part, the direction's fine, but it's pretty kind of, standard stuff, whatever. But there's a scene after he's telling the story and he's laying in bed, and underneath him, you see him as a younger man driving the car across the country. And it's like the two scenes are like, what, they kind of combine together. I was like, God damn, that's like a really technical shot, absolutely gorgeously shot. Doesn't belong in this movie. But yeah, it's one great shot in an otherwise, decently made movie, I suppose. But yeah, that's my favorite scene. Loves. Do you want to go for that? Go for it, Dave.
It's got to be the two main actors, Ozzy and Bruce. I mean, they just nail it, don't they?
Yeah.
With what they've got to work with, let's put it that way. And my third one is just the constant references to his pecker. I mean, every time they mention it, it made me smile.
Yeah.
It made me laugh. So it's good.
Rob,
yeah.
Go for it?
I'll put them both together, but I'm with Dave on that. Bruce and Ozzy as Elvis and JFK. They're having a great time. Ozzy Davis is in the twilight years. I don't think he had many years left after this, so he's just having fun.
No, I think he died in 2005. When he was I think he was like in his mid to late 80s. So
yeah, so he's having fun. Bruce Campbell will do anything for a laugh, it seems, or anything just like he did a film called My Name is Bruce, where he took out a demon as Bruce Campbell.
That's not nearly as good as this, sadly. That's a perfect example. We were talking about snakes on a plane earlier. That's a great example of like a silly premise where you're like, when I heard about it, I'm like, all right, I'm on board for this. I love Bruce Campbell. I am Bruce. He's playing himself. That sounds fantastic. And then you watch the film and you go, oh yeah, it's just not very good, sadly. But there you go.
My second one is I love the story behind how those two arrived there. Like the whole, I left being Elvis so I could become an Elvis impersonator because I got my mojo back at that point. But then I broke my hip and I'm stuck here. Sebastian Haff had already died at that point. He loved cocaine a bit more than me or something like that. And then we've already mentioned a few times the whole JFK thing. And to just turn around and go, they dyed me black just to avoid suspicion, I thought was so odd. Yeah. And for the uncomfortableness and it just made me funny. My third love is her just yanking his crankshaft. They just sit there and then he gets
so
mad.
basically you two have the same thing. It's the two lead actors and Dick. That's your third love.
It's the wry look on her face when she goes, Mr. Haff. I mean, to be fair, she is not fucking rubbing that in. She is yanking. There is no way that dude's not getting hard. So,
well, I guess maybe that's the point. It's like they really have to play it up. Like he should be getting, aroused by it, but usually he wouldn't because nothing left in the tank, as it were.
Yep.
Anyway, loves, unsurprisingly, so I'll get through this quickly. Bruce Campbell being as thoughtful as he is tender, funny and ludicrous. I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's really hard to balance that. And I think that's why the movie largely works. Ozzy Davis being cast as JFK is just absolutely inspired. And the concept itself, it's silly, but it's taken seriously. Not always, but I think it's taken serious enough for it to work as a 90-minute movie and not to outstay its welcome. As I said, I think it gets turned bang on. Hates?
Well, add a fourth. Come on, you can't be the only one.
No, three. I'm sticking to three. That's enough.
Add a fourth, like the dicks.
No, I'm not liking the dicks. I didn't.
He's already said he doesn't like nuts. So
yeah. Let's move on.
Why would you like dicks?
Well,
didn't have many. One main thing that I have an issue with in this film is the way they kill the zombie, the mummy at the end, right? They go out of their way to explain what they think's happening. That when he's locked in his box, as it were, he's some kind of curse on him, and he can't do anything about it. And then once he comes out, he's able to be good. So why do they then not put him back in the box? It all makes
I
tied up neatly, right? They also set fire to the mummy once and it comes back to life. So why does setting fire to it again kill it?
Yeah,
Doesn't
that
make any
is a
sense.
really good point. I should have written that down in my hates as well, because when I was watching, I was like, why did it not? It didn't work the first time, so you just did it again. It just shows a complete lack of imagination.
Eh,
Yeah, Paul.
Was I already?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Because I'm with you. There wasn't much to hate about this film because there's not much that happens in it. So you love the lead actors, and that's pretty much again 90% of the film. It was the lack of rules around the mummy that I had an issue with, and it was you had to hate her, the old woman. I put it in there because but you hate her because well, like she needs to be hated. That you're okay with her dying, so. Yeah, but like, I didn't have like I couldn't think of a third. To be fair,
Mine number one, it really was the Dutch angles and flash cuts, which I thought aged the film somewhat. Number two, I thought the cowboy mummy, as I mentioned earlier, could have been a tad scarier. I don't think he added much of a threat. I wish I'd added three now about the fact that they set him on fire twice, which was really dumb. And number three, again, we've mentioned previously, but it could have maybe done with some actual Elvis music. I think that would have added to it, but obviously budget constraints meant that wasn't going to happen. It's not the end of the world. I actually think the setting the mummy on fire twice is worse than the lack of Elvis music at this point, but those are my hates.
sorry,
Sorry.
I will add a third. The fact you didn't know what was going on with JFK and him walking or in the wheelchair. They just needed the wheelchair at the end so he goes back into it. Because otherwise, he's like a spring chicken just running around.
Yeah, he seems absolutely fine. Like he's just got it as like a treat. You know, like fat people at in Florida. Like if you go to Disneyland there, you get a lot of like those real. And I'm not talking fat. I'm talking those real fat fucks where they're like, I'm not walking. Like they don't need a wheelchair. They're just like, I'm not walking. So they just can't. I'm just like, really? We've got wheelchairs for people who don't need fucking wheelchairs. This is the world we live in. That's the kind of level. Although, like, let's be clear, like he's not carrying any timber. He should be able to walk around just fine. Unbelievable.
They didn't have those wheelchairs when I went to Disneyland.
Well, that's because you went to Paris.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
still.
yeah. No, oh no, you're not going to get that in Paris.
Oh, yeah.
This is
the French are just like fuck you.
Oh, dude, this is a Florida problem. Make no mistake, this is a fucking Florida problem. Any alternative titles to this film?
Yeah, like three. Italy, Bubba Ho-Tep, the king is here.
Fair enough.
Japan, Presley versus the Mummy Man.
Yes, I mean, Presley versus the Mummy would have been okay. I'm not sure if we needed the Mummy Man, but fair enough.
Serbia didn't like Bubba Ho-Tep, didn't know what it meant, just not a clue. So they went, right, we'll tell people what this film is definitely about. Elvis and Kennedy against the Mummy. I mean, succinct and to the point.
I actually think, as ridiculous as it sounds, I think they should have gone bigger with the King versus the Mummy or something along those lines. Because Bubba Ho-Tep doesn't mean shit outside America. Like we kind of like I think that's the reason they changed the names. Like most people like Bubba, it's like we get it because we have that kind of link to America. But Bubba Ho-Tep isn't a great title, and I don't think it sells you on just how ludicrous the premise of this film is. I think the King, like the tagline, "The King and JFK versus the Evil Dead," that's a better like title for this film. I think this film makes more money if that's what it's called. But you know, whatever. Or "The King and JFK versus the Mummy." Like if I heard that, you're like, yeah, I'll go watch that film. Whereas Bubba Ho-Tep, without like seeing the poster and everything, I'm like, what the fuck is a Bubba Ho-Tep? I have no idea.
It feels like it was Albert and Costello or something like that versus the Mummy back in the thing. It feels if you start doing it, it feels like that. And I don't know. I like Bubba Ho-Tep as a name. I think it's
I don't mind it at all. But I just if you're on about like selling it internationally, I don't think Bubba Ho-Tep travels. Put it that way. Like it's the Guinness of movie names. I just don't think it travels outside of Ireland. Just one of those things. Anyway, any facts for this film?
Not many. Do you want me to read them, Dave? Yeah. The only significant character not to make the transition from page to film is an old lady who believes herself to be a sex change John Dillinger. I mean, in 2024, that might have gone down better.
I think so, yeah. That would be quite normal. You'd be like, geez, I see this on TikTok every day. What the fuck?
Before Bruce Campbell accepted the role of Elvis, he had only one question for director Don Coscarelli. Are you going to show the penis?
Well, I'm glad they didn't.
Yep. Bruce Campbell helped promote the movie by bringing it along with him on his book tour for his autobiography, If Chins Could Kill, Confessions of a B-Movie Actor.
Great title.
That's the best name for a book ever.
Yeah. See, that travels. That fucking travels. That's the title.
The filmmakers managed to round up about 100 extras for the Elvis concert scene, But as the filming dragged on, the extras steadily departed. By the end of filming, there were only a dozen or so extras left, which pretty much dictated which camera angles could still work.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Fantastic. It's such a small scale film. It's ludicrous.
Most of the movie was shot in an abandoned veterans hospital outside of Los Angeles. Even the trailer park explosion was done there. They used 3 hallways of one of the buildings for the interior of the rest home. Filmed in 30 days, an unusually long schedule for such a low-budget film.
Well, like, should they care, maybe?
Don Coscarelli originally wanted a dual narration, with part of the story being narrated by an omniscient third person, not just an Elvis narration. He had recorded another voice narrating the action as it came from the short story it was based upon. This was abandoned after his friends told him it was terrible. Some of this narration can be heard on the DVD's deleted scenes.
Well, that's good that went, because that's an interesting thing, that they went with the inner monologue for a large part of this film, and a lot of inner monologues just don't work. In this film, I think it actually does, and I think it's absolutely necessary, because you can't just have him sitting in a room on his own doing fuck all. You need that like inside voice for sure.
Due to all the cameras, lights, and equipment virtually trapping him in his bed, at one point Bruce Campbell was forced to actually answer nature's call by using the same bedpan his character used.
Brilliant. Needs must, man. Needs must.
You're right. Yeah, you said that about the budget. Elvis describes his medicine bag as Mucho Mojo, the title of another story by the same author, Joe R. Lansdale. I'd read a book called Mucho Mojo.
Sure. Yeah, that's another good one.
What's we got here? Veteran actor Larry Pennell, who plays Kemosabe, also played a man dressed as the Lone Ranger in Sam Drucker's Visit more than 30 years earlier. So I think there are people who just think there are other people in this.
That seems to be the thing. Yeah, totally.
And then there actually is a Mud Creek in Texas, the name of the rest home in the movie, although it is not located in the eastern part of the states. There you go, bit of geography.
Hope to the future. So this is where he asks the question: remake, sequel, don't touch or let it die. So we already mentioned the fact that whether it be a sequel or a prequel or whatever, it's still theoretically ready to be made. As I say, if you go into IMDb, the whole Bubba Nosferatu Curse of the She-Vampires, which is a great title, by the way, we just don't know if that's ever going to get made. As to this film specifically, I don't want to see it remade. I think a big part of it is that casting. It is the fact that it's Bruce Campbell and it's Ozzie Davis. Obviously, you can't bring Ozzie Davis because he's passed away. I guess the point is, like, if you did do a movie now with, older Elvis again, say he survives at the end of the film, and even if he dies, it's that kind of film where you could bring him back to life. It'd be easy enough. He's actually, I think, almost the age that Elvis would have been in 2002. So I think I mentioned earlier, Elvis would have been 67 if he'd survived until 2002. Bruce Campbell's 65 now. So by the time if you kind of pitch the movie now, by the time it goes into production, he'd be that age. So he wouldn't have to actually put on that much makeup. And I'd love to see him as Elvis again. I just don't want to see them remake this version of the film. It's either you do a sequel or a prequel or whatever, but it has to be Bruce Campbell. That is absolutely essential. So, but otherwise, just leave it be, because I think it's it's a great film as it is.
Basically, all of that talk, leave it be, but remake it or do a sequel if Bruce Campbell will come back.
No remake. No remake. So
just sequel.
Potential sequel. Like, yeah. I could live with the sequel, but if you're talking specifically about this one, do not remake it. It has to be left alone.
It's funny, when he made these rules, there was no caveats, and every week he throws in caveats.
I love caveats, dude. You know how much I love caveats. They're the best. Especially when the caveats that serve me.
No, I agree. Yeah, don't remake it. It's the charm is people doing it, isn't it? But to be honest, I'm not that fussed on a sequel either. I think just let it be.
Yeah, that's where I like. Just leave it be. We don't need any furthers now. It's gone.
I think so, yeah.
It's gone too far now. And that's where I was saying over time, you don't need legacies. You don't need any of this shit now. It's over 20 years. Leave it alone. And just let it be where it is. Nobody can find it. If you've got it on DVD, lucky you. Otherwise, you can do what they did and watch it on some weird YouTube pirate copy thing.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I'm bringing up the sequel, the potential of the sequel, is because it's there. It's like I said, it's still on IMDb, so you kind of have to deal with it. But in reality, do I really want a sequel to this film? I'm not really. I'm just happy for it to exist in 2002 with this cool little cult film. That's the end of it. It's absolutely fine. In terms of making a change, so this is basically we can make one change to this film, and that's it. For me, it's very easy. It's taking out those early noughties directorial choices. As I said, the Dutch camera angles, the flash cuts, that's got to go. You can make an argument, as I said, about him not dying at the end, but I actually quite like the fact that he dies at the end. I don't, as I said, I don't think this film really needs a sequel. So yeah, I'll go with the some of the directorial choices, which puts it in 2002. And not much does, because when an old person's up at home, you don't need mobile phones. It's not like I'm watching this film and going, oh, this looks like 2002. It's just a couple of those choices where it's just like, oh yeah, this is the kind of shit they did in movies in 2002. But other than that, it's all gold. So that would be my one change.
Yeah, I would change how they kill the mummy.
Yeah, good shot.
Find a sarcophagus, push him in, get him locked up in a curse, and then you'd have to.
Like you said, it's
they
not
could
even
still set him on fire, but it didn't kill him. You know, and then
well, they just didn't need to set him on fire twice. Like if they tried to kill him, say with bullets, and they thought he was dead, and then he gets back up, and then they set his ass on fire, and that does it. Fine, that's fine. Just don't set him on fire. He's okay, and then do the same thing again and go, oh, that's lucky. Turns out with mummies, you have to set them on fire twice to kill them. That's not a fucking rule. What the fuck?
He can disappear in hallways and just. So why is he standing there ready to get set on fire?
Budget. The answer is budget.
We can't do another disappearing scene. We've run out of money, so just let him get set on fire.
Yeah, but they could have done better. Like they had zero. Like they obviously used all the budget on two things: Bruce Campbell and blowing up that trailer. And they're like, "Fuck, man, we haven't got enough." Like the mummy looks fine, whatever, but I know they were kind of playing up to the idea that that last action set piece is really low key and it really is two old people fighting a mummy, but they could have done a bit more with it. They really could have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The real answer is Dave's, obviously. That would make more sense. The joke answer is letting Bruce Campbell or letting Elvis have his day and the nurse actually jacks him off what he's had. That would be the change.
Or the other change is actually get his cock out.
Yeah.
Because now you've mentioned that, I kind of want to see his weird growth.
Now you've mentioned it. You guys have mentioned his cock like 5 times. You said
it's one of the facts, isn't it?
Elvis mentions his cock a lot of times in this film. Well, you have jumped on that bandwagon. And do you really want to see his cock with a growth on it? Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I kind of want to see the growth. I mean, he doesn't know where it is. I know when he looks down, he goes, what the fuck is that? It's a morbid curiosity.
I don't want to see Elvis's dick, let alone Elvis's dick with some kind of abnormality on the end of it. Jesus Christ.
I'm not a massive fan of penis, but now you said that, I want to see Elvis's penis, even if it doesn't have a growth on it.
It's very, very different answers.
I'm going to have this in a dick by the end of the day. I think this is happening. Right, I'm leaving.
So this is the only podcast where one question gets 2 answers that are less Dutch camera angle shots and more Elvis dick. It's the only one in the world. Unbelievable. In terms of video games, obviously there was no video game for Bubba Ho-Tep, unsurprisingly. If I was going to make one, and we've used Capcom and Resident Evil a few times, but this is more specifically, I would want it in the style of a PlayStation 1. And I mean PlayStation 1 era with the graphics, with the tank controls. So you're basically useless. You're either going around with a stroller. And the thing is, if you're going around with a stroller or with a, I was going to say a pushchair, in a wheelchair, it doesn't, like, you wouldn't even have to change the controls. Like if you haven't played those games from back in the 90s, like turning around in that, there's a reason it's called tank controls. They could have just as easily called them stroller controls or fucking wheelchair controls. So you wouldn't have to change anything about the game other than the fact that they're fighting mummies rather than zombies, and it's Elvis rather than Chris Redfield, I suppose. But that's what I'd go for.
As usual, I take it you're out of the video game section. Yeah.
I'd go for Pac-Man or what are the Space Invaders? Space Invaders with wheelchairs. Yeah, let's go with that. I don't know why you suddenly sound American. That's very strange.
We're not far off, really, because I was thinking Silent Hill 2. Like when you're in hospital and it becomes, I guess, evil Silent Hill 2. I can never remember
once the horn goes off and the whole town goes to shit.
Yeah, because
the hell version of it.
And the hellscape of Silent Hill 2 kind of feels like how this looks, the shady 80s.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So, I love the idea that it's like, it does the Silent Hill 2 thing where everything else goes to shit, and then he goes into his room, and his room's exactly the same. Like, it's already hell. So it's like everything changed. It's like, what the fuck? My room's already fucked. Unbelievable. That's not a bad shout. Although it does just remind me of like how much I want the Silent Hill 2 remake not to be shit. It's one of my like favorite games of all time. And every time I see a trailer for it, I'm like, it just, like when we saw those Resident Evil 2 remakes that Capcom did, and straight away you're like, oh yeah, they know what they're fucking doing. That game is legit. And you see these Silent Hill 2 remake trailers, you're like, oh man, this could really be an absolute fucking stinker, but we shall see. We shall see. So scores and recommendations. this is going to be an interesting one because based on your, like, I had no idea where you guys are going to go. Like, Dave looks like he's getting more and more bored just thinking about the film as this podcast going on. I'm like, he could be anywhere between a 2 and a 4 at this point. So I'll go first because I suspect this isn't going to be a surprise to anyone. I think it's 4 and a yes. I would totally recommend this to people. I think it still holds up. Like I said, outside of a few directorial choices which slightly age it, I think Bruce Campbell's performance is legitimately up there with the greatest portrayals of Elvis on screen ever. I think it's got heart. I think it's got laughs. I think they sit side by side very comfortably, and I think that's why it works. So yeah, 4 and a yes from me.
Well, you were spot on. Somewhere between a 2 and a 4. It's a 3.
Oh, there we go.
So
There we go.
I agree. It's really enjoyable to watch. It's funny enough. It is a bit slow parts, and there's not huge amounts going on, but it's the type of film that I enjoy.
Yeah.
We enjoy. We always watch these type
Yeah.
of slightly B movie-ish, type things.
Are we going to blame Rob for this? Because I think this is a perfect example of a film that's more fun to watch than it is to talk about, surprisingly. You wouldn't think that when you hear the premise, you're like, oh, that's going to be so much fun. But because so much of it is based around pathos and the action scenes being purposefully low key, when you go watch it, like this is maybe usually when I look at my notes before we start a podcast, it's fucking pages of the shit. With this, I was like, man, that's not a lot of notes. Like, there's just not that many notes.
I got my book out, I wrote the title, and then I put it down. There was no notes for this film at all.
I rocked up to Dave's house and I said, "You ready for this?" And he went, "What are we going to talk about?"
What are we going to talk about?
It has been fun to talk about. I mean, there's just nuggets throughout that keep you entertained and keep it rolling. There's funny bits. And like you said, there's sad bits, there's emotions. So there is a lot, but it's just not an action-packed constant.
No,
but it's a load of old dudes. It's just not going to be.
I thought this was supposed to be a zombie film, not the fucking Notebook with the mummy in it. What the fuck's going on? It's
also,
ridiculous.
If you're blaming me, just get ready for like lots of other selections that could be like this. So
I think I've got a safe bet for next week, but I'll let you get to your scores and recommendations first.
it's a 4 for me. It's charming. It is a charming film. I really enjoy it. I love. The whole point of it is if it wasn't Bruce Campbell or Ozzie Davis, it would be a shit film, I think. These two,
I actually think you need the director as well. Yeah. I think it is that like all three of them. Like I think even if like as proved by the example used earlier, I Am Bruce. You can't just have Bruce Campbell in a film like everything's fine. I think you need the director taking it as seriously as, while still kind of leaning to the fact that it's silly, and then having those two actors who can do both those things. They can do the emotional beats, but they can really play the ludicrous comedic parts as well. So I think it's like all three that make it work.
And I would recommend it. I mean, you have to, but it's one of those things as well. We always say this with films like this. I would recommend it. Mm-hmm. You can't just go to anybody and just go, "Oh, it's just film."
Mm-hmm. I think you might be able to. I think there's enough to this film. I think it's
I got a feeling if you're recommending it to just anyone on the street, they're going to fucking hate you.
Put it this way, I watched it with my wife, and he said at the very beginning, "Am I going to like this?" I knew she wasn't going to like this. I said,
"I've seen my wife."
Yeah, I think so. I said, "Give it a go. It's all right." And within 30 minutes, she just went, "What's going on?" If you can't figure it out now, you're never going to.
So I did.
Doesn't Rachel fall asleep in like 40% of movies though?
She just gave up. She just started watching Grey's Anatomy on her phone.
So I watched it with my wife, and she did the same thing. So she's watching it, going, "Oh, Bruce Campbell, I love him in Burn Notice and things." And then 20 minutes into it, I just see it into her phone.
But that's you know why? That's a perfect example. I love Bruce Campbell in Burn Notice. Yeah, but I guess maybe that brings it back to your point.
He's great in Burn Notice.
He is. But I think that does come back to your point about maybe you have to be a bit more careful about who you recommend it to. And I think that's the perfect question. It's like, oh, do you know Bruce Campbell? Yes. What do you know him from? Evil Dead or Burn Notice? If you know him from Evil Dead, you're going to love this film. If you love him from Burn Notice, you can probably give it a miss. So I think that's a strange rule, but I think it's very specifically accurate in this case. But like with Beth, like we went to see this in the cinema when it first came out. It was like one of the first movies we ever went to see together. So we had this like, it's because like the first film we ever went to see on our first date was fucking Die Another Day. And it's like the worst James Bond film. So we've almost like erased that from the record. And I think there might be other films involved. The Hulk was another one, which I enjoyed, the angry one, but Bethan fucking hated. That was an early wobble in our relationship when I took it to see the Hulk.
I'm with Bethan on that one.
I like parts of it. I like half of that film. But Bubba Ho-Tep we both liked. So I think we've kind of just mentally gone, yeah, then let's just say that's the first one we saw together at the cinema. So blame Ang Lee's Hulk and fucking die another day for that. But not a fan of Ang Lee's Hulk then, yeah?
No, I think it sucks. When we
Yeah.
cover it, we probably will. Oh, I fucking hate it. I'd rather watch Avatar 2.
Oh man, I think that's so close to being a really good film. But don't get me wrong, when that like it shits the bed for half the film, and when it shits the bed, it absolutely soils the place. But half of it is really good. But I've never seen a film where I've been so on board with half the film and so not on board with the other half. And it's not, I don't mean a 50-50 split. It goes back and forth moment to moment. I'm like, oh, this is good. This is shit. Oh, I like this bit. This is fucking terrible. It's a strange film for me to watch. But,
Come on, anyway, get off Hulk. Tell us what we're doing next week and why will it be Midnight Meat Train?
Ang Lee's Hulk, and it's not, sadly, the Midnight Meat Train, which I'm still amazed in gay porn. Anyway, this is a long overdue look back at 1990s Predator 2, which I suspect Dave might be on board with, considering you are a pretty big fan of Predator, at least, yeah?
I am indeed.
Yeah. So, I mean,
you want to join us for Predator 2?
I'd love to. Yeah, come ahead.
I mean, Predator 2 is an interesting one because if you love Predator, you're going to have an opinion one way or another. So it's another one of those films. We all know it's not as good as Predator, which is, of course, like Predator is one of the best B movies literally ever made. Predator 2 is not that. You know,
but
Murtaugh isn't Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I seem to recall it being pretty decent.
I'll say it next week. It's apples and oranges. It's got the same villain in it, but it's two completely different films. And do you know, I don't have, I haven't seen it for a while, but I don't have as much of a hate boner for it as a lot of people do.
A hate boner?
Yeah.
It's just, you're just going to get dick into every conversation, although I do quite like the term hate boner. I am a big fan of that.
Yeah, so...
do people have a hate? I feel like the hate boner has become more of a semi-hate, if that makes sense. I feel like the chat around this film is like maybe it's because of the subsequent sequels, and this because when people think of Predator, they throw in Aliens and all these remakes and stuff, and I think a lot of people go like, do you know what? Predator 2 wasn't that fucking bad, and I think like Ang Lee's Hulk, it's going to be another one of those films where 50% of it is actually a bit shit, but when it's good, Predator 2 is really good. It has really good moments. What's the example we always use where like Beverly Hills Cop 2 and the other one where they pretend the dude is dead.
We get to Bernie's too. When you think of a film, everything you think of usually comes from the sequel, not the original. Sequel,
despite the fact it's not as good. I think a lot of the stuff that's happened to do, when people think of the Predator, actually comes from that second film. But yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to go back to when.
It's good, mine, because usually when we say about a film coming up, you always say, "Oh, use a quote from this film in our personal lives." Or like you and your wife do it with films, or you and your friends and stuff like that. And we do it a lot with Predator 2. It's when somebody offers you sweets.
Want a piece of candy?
You want some candy?
Oh, see, there's only one quote for this film as far as I'm concerned, but I'm going to save that for the start of the podcast next week. But like, I'm sure it's the one everyone thinks of, other than the candy one. But anyway, I'm pretty sure this is on Disney Plus, so pretty easy to get hold of if you want to rewatch it before we record next week. But yeah. So we're looking back at 1990s Preds 2, which I have no idea if it's going to hold up. So I'm actually quite looking forward to it. So
I just can't wait to see more Gary Busey.
Oh, of course, Gary Busey.
Everything's always better with crazy Gary Busey.
Well, that's the thing, though. Like, I want to see Gary Busey when he was enjoyably crazy. Now I see these videos are sent to me every so often of Gary Busey. Now I'm like, oh no, he's just lost his fucking mind, and it's a little bit sad. I don't like seeing these videos now of Gary Busey. We're like, oh look, it's crazy Gary Busey. I'm like I said before, like when you're younger and one of your mates drinks to excess, and you're like, oh, this fucking, drunk fucking. I was going to say Dave.
It's crazy. He's also congenital because his son has the same crazed look in his eyes.
Yeah, God, he loves getting pissed, and then all of a sudden you get to a certain age, and you're like, I think he's got alcoholism. Oh no, this is, and it just suddenly becomes depressing. And I feel like that's happened with Gary Busey. Like if you're out of your fucking mind and you're like 40 or 50, it can be quite fun. But when you look old as shit like he does now, and you're still acting crazy, you're like, oh, I think he just may have lost his marbles. It just gets a bit sad.
Interesting, isn't it? Because Bruce Willis got ill. They sheltered him. You don't see a lot of Bruce Willis or how he's talking or anything now. Gary Busey, they're like, go in front of the camera. Be fucking crazy.
Well, you see this every so often. It's like different. It was like with Charlie Sheen. Like it wouldn't happen. I don't think it would happen nowadays where he was clearly having a mental breakdown and it just happened on TV. Like everyone just like stick a camera on this guy, or like Britney Spears in like 2003. She had a fucking mental breakdown, and it was all just recorded by the paparazzi.
Britney Spears 2 months ago, where she was dancing in her house with knives.
Yeah, she's another one. But anyway, Gary Busey, and I keep saying Murtaugh. That's not his real name.
Oh my God, I do want him to say, "Oh, your quote's got to be I'm too old for this shit."
I just live it on the title. Predator 2 starring Gary Busey and Murtaugh, and Gary Busey gets top billing for some reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything else before we wrap this shit up?
Well, as always, thanks for joining, Dave. It's always fun when you tag along.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Okay, I've been Liam, he's been Rob, that's been Dave, and you have been listening to the Hey Guys podcast. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Hey, you guys!